Hi, everybody. Father Mark here. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what's going on and some thoughts I've had. Um, Normally today I would have gotten up and enjoyed a pot of herbal tea. Um, well, let's be honest. Enjoy is a stretch. It's pleasant enough, I suppose, but it's nothing like coffee or even black tea. But caffeine and decaf coffee nowadays bother my stomach, so I don't drink them any longer. Even black tea's too much nowadays. However, as I told my daughter Lydia the other morning, um, I'm accustomed to starting my day with some kind of hot flavored water, and these days it's herbal tea for me. Anyway, as I started to say, I begin my morning with a pot of herbal tea, and then I read the New York Times and the Washington Post, being one of those silly people who still thinks newspapers do a good job of informing me of the news. Most of us have a morning routine, and I imagine for a lot of us it's pretty similar to mine. Get up, have breakfast, including some sort of hot flavored water of whatever kind we prefer, and then put the kids on the bus or go to work or whatever we do during the day. There are far fewer options for how we spend our days now, at least for the time being. But how we spend our days isn't just about work or taking care of our kids or running errands or fixing things around the house. And however we begin the day, however we spend the day afterwards, my hope is that even though we're stuck in the middle of this pandemic, that we're keeping in mind the sort of people Jesus taught us to be. And beyond merely thinking about Jesus, we're trying to live as he taught. Our scripture is sometimes very direct about things, but most often it takes some study to get what we need from it. Today, as is the case every day, there are lessons appointed for us to read and study if we choose. Some of you already knew this, I'm sure. There are what we call lectionaries out there. If you're not familiar already, there is one called the lectionary page. It's set up like a calendar. You click on the day, and the lessons for that day come up for you to read. In the main calendar, there aren't always lessons set out for each day, but there is also a section called the Index to Lesser Feasts and Fasts, and these are what in the Roman Catholic tradition are sometimes called saints' days, and there are a lot more of those. Finally, there's what we call the daily office lectionary. This is a cycle of daily readings that are designed to help us go through most of the major books of the Bible together with the Psalms over the course of 2 years. So if you want to study Scripture at this time and use Scripture reading in the morning or evening or both to help encourage you to begin and continue your daily life on the right foot, those are right there for you to try in whatever way you like. I'll put some. I put some links in the email I sent out to all of you earlier if you want to give those a shot. The point being, some of the ways that we begin our day we do simply out of habit. Others we do out of necessity. We put on a uniform if we're in the military or in the police or fire or EMS service. We put on scrubs if we're involved in healthcare. We put on a suit or work clothes or some other kind of appropriate clothing to our job. But quite apart from those other things that we do from habit or necessity, as a follower of Jesus, I feel there are a couple of other things I need to do. Maybe you feel this way too. I feel like I need to put on an appropriate attitude for the day, for instance. I'm going out into the world as a Christian, and that means that however hard the day proves to be, I want to seek God's presence in the interactions I have with those around me. As socially appropriate as the right clothing is, as helpful as the right morning routines are, it's even more important to me to remind myself that today I'm going to encounter other people who are all created in the image and likeness of God, whether it's in person, far fewer of those nowadays, or at least recently, or online, or in whatever way. And it's up to me to figure out how to love the people I encounter in whatever way is appropriate to the situation. If I'm picking up a cup of coffee and a donut, which sadly I don't get to do very often, but maybe your metabolism still permits them, loving the person at the counter waiting on me might mean that I show kindness or generosity or patience or all three. The person that I encounter might be frustrated at the morning rush, or right now, more likely anxious about COVID 19 or about whether the shop will be able to continue paying her if business falls off dramatically. If I come in and treat her with discourtesy or ignore her or talk on my phone while she's waiting on me, that will affect her life. It will also affect mine. If I come in and ask how she's doing, tip her, make eye contact, and say, hey, I hope your day goes well, and I mean it, it will also affect her life and mine. I met with two engineers the other day about our future building project. Both of them really neat guys. I mean, really, really good guys. And they were both interesting people, too. I forget sometimes that every person I meet in life has a story I don't yet know. And it's easy to become cynical and simply say, well, what's so interesting about a couple of engineers? I'm sure some people say that actually about meeting priests. Well, the guy's a priest. That's pretty boring. But every time we meet someone, we're meeting a person for whom Jesus was willing to live and teach and sacrifice himself. Part of the problems we have in the world today have to do with uninspired, cynical, sometimes dishonest leadership at the top of our nation. Others stem from the concentration of wealth in a very few hands, something that Scripture talks a great deal about, while others go without or face anxiety and despair because of their poverty. And it's hard to solve those enormous problems, but it is within our grasp to address one problem that affects us all: our alienation from one another. And this virus outbreak has simply pointed out something that we already realized, that we're alienated from one another. Most of the people you meet, though, have a lot in common with you. Everyone you meet has an interesting story to tell. All of them are beloved children of God, and a great many of them, like you, wish that people would just be kinder to each other. A great many of them wish the world were a more decent, just, and merciful place. I encourage you each morning with your coffee or tea, or if you're like me and you can't drink those wonderful beverages, with whatever hot flavored water you do drink, to also put on, drink in, and otherwise commit to being, for whomever you meet during the day, proof that things can be better if we all decide to treat one another better. We'll love ourselves and others more. We'll find ourselves closer to God. We might even change the world a little bit. We'll certainly change the lives of those whom we meet.